Hello, I'm Danielle and I finished my GCSEs and left St Ives in 2016. But at the moment, I'm in my third year of a four-year physics degree at the University of Exeter. Right, so as you probably know, your compulsory GCSEs will be maths, English language and literature, and then science of some form. So I chose triple science because mainly I was told that it opens a lot of doors, and because to be honest, I really enjoy science, so I didn't mind doing extra science, and I'm really glad I did it in the end. The year I chose my GCSEs in 2014, we had to take a modern foreign language. So I had the choice between Spanish and French, so I chose French simply because I was better at it than I was at Spanish. The way the option blocks were laid out left me with a bit of a problem though, and I'm sure a lot of you are in the same position. Um, so I already decided that I was going to do triple science and French, but I wanted to do art and history as well. I knew I wanted to do something creative and something to do with history, so that narrowed down my options to either history and graphics or art and classics, because with the way the option blocks were laid out, I couldn't do art and history together. Um, so I would have been happy doing either art or graphics, but I was much more interested in modern history than I was in ancient history. So in the end, I went with history and graphics. And I knew I wanted to take further maths as an extra GCSE because maths came quite natural to me. It was my 10th GCSE. Most people do 9. So maybe I wouldn't recommend it unless you're getting 7s, 8s or 9s in maths. But there's never any harm in just going to a few classes and trying and see how you find it, because you might surprise yourself. So, like I was saying before, I'm really glad I did triple science, and although the level of science in B3, C3, and P3 is more difficult, I did find that overall by picking triple science, it did actually reduce my overall workload compared to if I'd picked a completely different subject and then was doing double science on top of that. And then thinking forwards as well, triple science will look really good on a CV, and you have to do it if you're going to be doing a science A level as well. Um, and then going even further forward, a science A level may be required for some degree programs as well. Um, Now moving on, French was the GCSE I found the most difficult. So in my mock listening exam, I did get a D, which I believe translates to like a 3 or a 4. Then after a lot of hard work, I managed to get an A star overall in French, and got the French award that year. But it's definitely the GCSE result that I'm the most proud of, because I genuinely didn't believe I was capable of getting that grade. But I did. So I was even told at one point that I was going to fail, but I didn't. And I did get a lot out of doing French, but it did take up a lot of time and probably caused me the most stress out of all of my GCSEs. It's of course different for everyone, and for me and my personal learning style, it just didn't really, it didn't really complement me. So I don't have the best memory. I tend to understand things. I tend to remember things better if I understand them. But if you find you're good at memorizing things, I'd say French would be a really good option for you. So graphic design was the subject I definitely worked the hardest at, and the one I spent the most time on. But at the same time, it was the one I got the most out of as well. So really enjoyed it and had the opportunity to enter loads of competitions. And I won awards and travelled to London and Leicester as well, which was really good fun. So the design work is fantastic, and you do learn a lot as you go. And then I must say that Mrs. Rashidi is an amazing teacher. So I definitely recommend taking the opportunity to be taught by her if you're thinking about graphics but you're unsure. So I didn't get the result I wanted in history, but I still really enjoyed it. So I was getting the equivalent of 7s, 8s and 9s in my classwork. I did get 100% in part of my exam. But for my second exam, I wasn't doing very well the day before, and then ended up not doing well in the exam, and that did bring it down. So I don't know which subjects have coursework now, but when I did my GCSEs, maths and history were the only ones that didn't. So there obviously be many factors into picking your GCSEs, and I think going with the ones that you're the most interested in is definitely the best option. Even though there will be some subjects that are objectively harder, it will be much easier to motivate yourself to revise and work if you're doing the ones you're interested in. But at the same time, if you're still struggling to pick after that, thinking about which subjects are more coursework heavy and which are more exam heavy may help you to choose the subjects that are better suited to the way you work. So some people will thrive in an exam setting and other people will prefer to pick up marks as they go along. And either is fine, and everyone works differently. So further maths is a brilliant extra GCSE to pick up if you want to do A-level maths, but you don't need it to do A-level maths, but it will give you a head start if you do choose that. So once you finish your GCSEs, you have the option to go into further education, and the route I took to my degree was A-levels. So there are other routes to a degree, but this is the route I took. So at this point, my aim was to study maths at Cambridge, which ended up doing physics at Exeter, which I'm very glad about. And I really struggled picking my A-levels because there were so many things I wanted to continue. But again, the great thing about A-levels is that you only have to do the subjects that you enjoy. And because you go much more in depth into these subjects, I did find A-levels much more enjoyable than GCSEs, and more manageable because even though maybe the workload's a bit higher, you're only doing 3 or 4 different subjects, so you're not constantly having to change from your maths brain to your English brain to your science brain. So yeah, and I'm sure a lot of you are feeling the pressure at the moment. But I found college to be a lot more of a relaxed environment, where of course the teachers want you to do well, but you won't be in lessons from 9 till 3:15, and you have a lot more opportunity to work in your own time. So I was always going to do maths and further maths, and having Mr. Parasine as a teacher really sparked my passion for English as well. And then Mr. Armstrong strongly encouraged me to take physics. So yeah. So after my first year of college, I dropped English. So I got an AS qualification at B grade, which is sort of like half of an A level. So you'll find most people will drop down to 3 A levels after the first year, but you don't actually have to do this. So I finished maths, further maths, and physics, and I got A stars in all 3. And I received the Science Student of the Year award at Penworth College. So in your final year of college, you'll also be filling out something called a UCAS application, and this allows you to apply to universities. So you can apply to up to 5, applying for specific courses. So I really enjoyed physics at college and actually found that it came quite naturally to me. Whereas I had to work a lot harder in further maths. I realised that I didn't want to do maths at degree because I didn't really enjoy doing maths where I couldn't see how it could be applied. And I'm really grateful that I was encouraged to take it as an A-level because I love it. So I applied to 5 different universities and got an unconditional offer from one, which means that they accept you onto the course no matter what grades you end up getting. And then the others gave me a conditional offer, which means that they allow you onto the course if you achieve certain grades. So I had to attend an interview to receive my offer from Exeter. So then once you get your offers back, you choose two your universities, and then one's your first choice and the other one will be your second choice. So if you get the grades for your first choice, then that's where you end up going. And then some universities as well will drop the entry requirements if you put them as first choice. So Exeter, for example, initially offered me A-star AA, but then because I put them as first, they then dropped the requirement down to AAB, which was really good. So a degree might not be for everyone, but you by no means have to know what you want to do in life to do one. So yes, it might help. It will help you to get a job, but you get so much more from going to university than that. I think the most important thing is that you choose to do a degree that is something that you enjoy, because there will be a lot of independent work. So I think it's worth thinking about the subjects that you enjoy revising for. So I found that I really loved making science notes, and to be honest, that's what most of my degree has consisted of up until now. So it's important to look to the future, and maybe even more important, but I think maybe even more important to think about what you like and enjoy. So I don't plan on working in a lab or going to space, but I love physics, and I've made so many friends while at university that I know I'll be friends with for life. Also, I've learned so much about who I am and what I enjoy. I've learned to look after myself. That your clothes don't actually come back magically clean when you throw them into the washing basket. And to be fair, I was so scared to go off to university, but it is the best decision I've ever made. So my course is 4 years long, and to be honest, there are a lot more contact hours with physics than there are for other subjects. But on the average week, you'd be looking at around 6 lectures, which would be 50 minutes long. So that'd be 2 from each module. And then there will be separate problems classes that take place in a more like classroom setting, where you'll work through problems that you've been set in the week, and then there's people there to help you. So in my first and second year, there were coding modules. So I didn't actually have any coding experience before starting university. So it was a steep learning curve, but so many of us were in exactly the same situation, so we were able to help each other out. So in first and second year, you spend between 3 and 6 hours in the lab each week working on experiments and collecting data. Then this year and next year, my time in the lab will be spent working on my project, which is on the use of light to identify pigments in ancient paintings, which I'm finding really interesting. So when we collect results, we use what we've learned in our coding modules to plot the data really quickly and easily, which comes in really handy. So just to bring things to an end, I want to give a little bit of advice and share some things that I wish I was told when I was both picking my GCSEs and when I was studying for them. So do try to spend some time alone thinking about the things you enjoy and why you enjoy them, because I understand you may feel very overwhelmed at the moment with all the teachers trying to get you to pick their subject, or your parents' opinions might weigh quite heavy on you, but this is about you. Even if it means talking to your friends instead, or doing some journaling, or even writing down the subjects that you're considering, and writing down the pros and cons for each one. Also, this was just the path I took. There's no right or wrong path, whether you decide to do a degree or not. So GCSEs, they can be tough at times. So I'd say plan your work and try to schedule something in every day that you enjoy. And work together as well, because you'd be surprised with how much you can get out of working with people your own age, because we all have different strengths, so use them. And finally, try your best, but not at the detriment of yourself. So please try and prioritise getting like at least 8 hours of sleep, eating enough, and getting some exercise every day, because working smart is always better than working hard, and you are not defined by your grades.